Amid an increasingly chaotic world, teens have seemingly been left to fend for themselves, as proper age appropriate content for them has very much become a thing of the past. Teen media used to dominate the culture, even expanding its reach outside of just teens. And yet today, there's zilch. Nothing, nada. But rather, it just doesn't exist on the same level that it used to. Where are the teen movies, shows, starlets, magazines, and so on? How did we get here? To better understand how teen media got to where we are today in the 2020s, we have to go back to where it all started. The 1937 film A Family Affair served as a starting point for the teen genre, with Mickey Rooney's character Andy Hardy being introduced as the first teenager across American cinema. But things didn't really take off until the 1950s. And that's when we started to see teen rebellion be captured in The Wild One with Marlon Brando and Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean. And TV caught up a bit later. It was the 1960s soap Never Too Young that's now considered as the earliest example of teen media hitting television. And teen comedy movies started to hit their stride in the 1980s, with John Hughes movies often being considered defining films of the time. And we would continue to see this trend of high school centered comedies into the 90s. Some heavy hitters included Clueless and 10 Things I Hate About You. And this trend continued into the 2000s. And we saw this with movies like Mean Girls and Bring It On. As for TV, things didn't really pick up until the 80s with a lot more wholesome content, which we saw through programs like The Wonder Years, Saved by the Bell, and sure, we did get our first introduction into Degrassi, which is very much the opposite side of that, but still. Wholesome teen TV content continued into the 90s as well. This was seen through shows like Boy Meets World, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But we did start to get edgier content like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dawson's Creek, My So-Called Life, 90210, the list goes on. By the time we hit the 2000s, teen television was honestly hitting its stride, and there was practically something for everyone at all different levels. The Disney Channel and Nickelodeon expertly cornered the preteen tween market, and they did it with such great success. And my God, to be a teenager when Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, and Selena Gomez were running things on the Disney Channel was a time to be alive. Networks were also zeroing in on what I like to call the teen soap genre. So shows like The OC, Gossip Girl were really taking off. And sure, we still got plenty of teen centered movies and television shows in the 2010s, but the rise in social media really changed how teens consumed media and entertained themselves. How do you think that we got here in the first place? I
Yeah,
know
it's
that's
a
like a
great
really
question.
loaded question.
It's a great question. I mean, we can't have this conversation without talking about the fact that there are content creators and tech platforms that prey on young people's developmental
Yeah.
vulnerabilities. They are producing for profit, not producing for the protection of personhood. And so you have people who understand that the content that they are creating is going to be consumed at high levels by young people who are drawn to them because of the age and stage of their life, what they're curious about, what they're interested in, what they want to see, who they want to follow. And those are bad actors. That bad acting might be malicious, or it might be mercenary, or somewhere in between. But I do know that our tweens and teens spend sometimes hours of the day consuming media that was produced for profit and not to protect who they are as people. And we can go back and look at the history of media and film and video
Mhm.
and recognize that rarely did we have movies and TV shows that were being created with well-being in mind. But often
Yeah.
they were being created with art and creativity and expression as the goal rather than rapid consumption for profit and attention through advertisement.
But social media isn't the only problem contributing to this shift. The COVID-19 pandemic also led to the teen genre taking a major hit. And it's hard to argue against how different life has been for everyone since the pandemic happened.
Working with teens and working with adolescents over all the years I've been in the field, I really think COVID really pushed it into where things shifted. A lot of teens have brought that up. A lot of teens have shared that COVID really impacted them because it took them away from it took them away from the in-person interactions with people, that important aspect of growth, social emotional growth, social cues, understanding nonverbal communication, and put them in front of a screen, right? And now all of a sudden, let's try to get the teens sucked into this, and now we're getting all this information that at where the teen's brain is too much for them, and they don't get it, and they don't fully understand it because they don't their brain isn't at a point where they can like critically think through it because of life experience, right? So I think that's why. I think honestly, I think the media figured out to keep kids going, it's social media, right? I really think that a lot of these social media platforms figured out that that's how we keep teens and that's how we keep things going and building and getting more and more on those and less away from really what teens need, which is guidance.
Streaming also shifted how we all watch and consume film and television, with most new teen movies being released straight to Netflix and other streamers rather than heading to theaters for a wider release. Something that I did notice in the late 2010s heading into now is that some of the bigger movies featuring teen characters during that time period that also hit the movie theaters ended up getting slapped with a rated R rating. And that includes films like 2017's Lady Bird, as well as 2019's Booksmart. And I do credit Superbad for this shift with teen comedies getting that R rating. It was just such a defining film of its time. And it was very successful during its release, and I strongly believe that it's influenced so many of the teen comedies that we see now.
I'm a fully grown adult and I read YA books, I watch teen movies. So like it's
Yeah.
not for me, but I love it. And then I'm like, wait, I think it is for me. Like I think it's actually not for teens. It's just
Yeah.
maybe making the characters teens. I care about parents and I care about families, but I don't really care about what parents think about like the content their kids like. I want it to be safe. I want it to be
Yeah.
fun, but I don't really write for what parents want their kids to write. But I have said with my full chest, like to parents and to the general parents, like your child is way more wholesome than you're going to give them credit for, like all the time. You're going to be like, my kid has all these bad influences and that TikTok is terrible for them and whatever. And you're like, I don't want my kid doing that. I think your kid, if you have this relationship with your child and you've like raised them in some certain way and like let them know about how you feel about those things, they are, for the most part, really going to respect that and they're going to come to you with stuff that they found online that's really out of their realm of that they can process. So they are way more wholesome. They are not getting up to as much trouble as you think they are. And also, at the same time, kids are not kids, but like tweens and teens are way more sophisticated and in the know and out there and exposed to stuff than you can even know, and you'll be like, well, when I was 16 I wasn't, and you're like, you're not currently 16 and they are.
Yeah.
They are navigating this world in a just a way different way than we ever did, and generations before ever did. They are maybe doing some of the stuff in those R-rated movies. They are exposed to it if they are not invested in it. They maybe don't even blink an eye at some of those things that would get a movie rated R in the first place.
Mhm.
They are exposed to sexual content everywhere. They're exposed to violence constantly, as so was our generation, right? We're just like, we are exposed to violence. Look at the news right now, you will turn it right off. And then when it's in a movie for entertainment and it's a high, car scene, fast chase, you're like, suddenly not for kids, not okay.
Yeah.
They feel it, school shootings is like just a well, nothing we can do about it there. But then there's gun violence in movies, and that's just too much
Mhm.
for our precious children. So I think they are way smarter than we give them credit for, um, exposed to a whole lot more than we think that they are. And I think that they are also at the core still just kids like we all were.
I think a lot about the 2018 movie Eighth Grade. The Motion Picture Association gave this film an R rating because of the frequent curse words and because of a scene featuring discussions of asexual nature. But this R rating prevented its own target audience from being able to go see it, being the preteens and teenagers, middle schoolers. And director Bo Burnham actually had the option to edit the film down so it can get a PG-13 rating, but he opted not to because he felt if he did this, it wouldn't be an accurate portrayal of tween life. And the film's distributor, being A24, did not argue against this R rating either. But how they got around this R rating to allow the intended audience to be able to see this movie, A24 arranged a one night unrated screening for the film so that people of that age demographic could go see it without issue. And I vividly remember seeing a long line of kids that were the middle school tween age outside of the Alamo in New York waiting to see this specific movie on that one special night. And to me, that just goes to show you that they are looking for content for them, but it's not being made for them.
I mean, when you said that with the eighth graders, I
Mhm.
didn't see that, but I remember watching 13 when I
Yeah,
was
that was
13.
not for us.
I was like, that's not how I was at 13, but it wasn't
Yeah.
made for 13-year-olds, and
Mhm.
it was made to show extreme 13-year-olds. It wasn't like the average kid does this or that. But I think it didn't scar me for life. It was like this is someone else's story, and this
Yeah.
is a life I wasn't living, but I know kids are, and like that's like kind of okay. Yeah, I think that maybe because I've dipped into AI in the later part of my years, I've also thought I can't even ballpark how and give you a number of how many years I think it would take for like government regulations to get up to speed of like will we start, actually putting policy into place about how young use like, teen and child users of AI, like how they will be policed and what will be acceptable. I think like old COPA laws navigating children's online privacy and policy are so outdated. So like how long before we update anything there of like is an R-rated movie of 1985 the same R-rated movie of 2026? Like,
No, like think of The Breakfast Club. If it came out now, that would be PG-13, no doubt.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
16 Candles wasn't. They had the girl fully nude at one point,
yeah,
the
yeah.
shower.
Like opening credits just fully nude, and we were like, oh, okay, sure. That's not the plot even. That wasn't even necessary, and it was
No.
still. But I think also I argue both sides always because I say I don't think we just get get a fire under us that's like we have to change all the rules to make it how we want it to be. But also I think even those things are trending over time. Like we were a lot less sensitive to nudity back then, obviously. We were just like, okay, that's fine. And, like language maybe a little bit more so now that we're cracking down on. Violence is always like a questionable scale.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if things need updating. It's just like this is obviously a standard meant to be like, well, when you say this word or show this scene 3 times, that's the grade you get.
And what's even more troublesome is the fact that not having proper media for teens is actually detrimental to their overall well being. In a world where social media ends up being the dominant form of entertainment for so many teens, what effects do you think that has on their mental health?
It has a big effect on mental health, social media, because what it does is it's like teens are more visible than ever, but not necessarily more understood.
Mm.
And they're visible but not given a ton of guidance, right? So they're sharing all these things but no real guidance other than peer-to-peer guidance, which we know they don't have the life experience and they don't have the brain development to really be able to guide each other in a really productive way all the time. We also see a really big comparison. Like that's something that social media really impacts an adolescent is that comparison. Like they're
Mm.
comparing themselves to curated media. And that's what's become really what teen media is social media. It's no longer like media that's helping them learn something, gain a skill, grow in a skill, whether it's, moving into young adulthood or anything like that. It's all like so centered around social media now.
So, how do we fix this? What can we possibly do?
When we think about where things are going, is there even a solution to resolving this? Because it is a problem and the teens deserve more.
They do. And I think that there are a couple entry points for where this really can show up and
Mm,
where we can support. The first is that I have a lot of hope in our young adults who are entering the working world right now, who
yeah.
grew up in a time where algorithms were making decisions about them without their well-being in mind. I am loving watching the nostalgia movement, the slow living movement, the sort of pull back to, wait, I want to watch a long movie, or I want to watch longer form content, or move away from, shorts and other pieces. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious what I'm watching for. Are young adults going to actually pick up the mantle and take care of their younger siblings, whether biological or just generational, by really addressing the harms of AI generated content, short form content, that really, again, is preying on developmental vulnerabilities
Mm,
and offering an authentic alternative that also addresses that representation because they too grew up in the world as digital and disruption natives and
yeah.
can really attend to that. So I think that's one, a lot of power and possibility in young adult creators who want to really rehuman media and allow it to serve the beautiful and fun purposes that it can without the risks to mental health and attention and other developmental consequences. I think the second is young people producing their own content.
Yes.
Like, let's create more opportunities for youth to be really speaking into powerful places that have a lot of visibility about what they want to watch, what they want to see, and demanding that almost as activists and as a form of advocacy. And then I
Mhm.
think the last part is what are parents doing to um, really support the attention and ability to engage in good, longer form content and content that really is about the pleasure over the profit. And so there is a parenting role to both have young people actually practice presence of
Yeah.
I'm watching this for pleasure and I'm watching this for a sustained period of time. Um, but also educating them on the harms of short form content and AI
Yeah.
generated content because this is their life and often they are old enough to hold that information.
As for my own hopes, I eagerly await the day that today's youth is in a position of power so they can start creating the content that they wish they could have saw in the world when they were of that age. Teen media is important, and we cannot let it die.